Watershed, it can be said, our home place.
In recent years, climate change has become a pressing problem across the Earth. With automobile ownership and industrial development expected to increase across the globe, greenhouse gas emissions will continue to rise.
A couple years ago, I was fortunate enough to be one of 250 Canadians selected to become climate change presenters trained by the David Suzuki Foundation, as well as Al Gore and the Al Gore Foundation. You know, as the science is well documented, we do have a big issue right now globally with the problem of global warming and climate change. And part of my role as a tourism operator was to try to then be able to convey that information to people who travel with us, whether it's here at our programs based in the Ottawa Valley, or we also run eco-adventure travel tours in other countries, including the United States and Mexico.
The effects of global warming can be felt across the globe. However, some regions are more drastically affected than others.
Climate change, as it's made its big splash publicly, people are, certainly understand that there's a big issue or problem with our overall global temperatures being on the rise. Sometimes here within this region, it's harder for people to be able to see or detect, because in these temperate regions, we don't see the effects of climate change as much as we would either in the tropics around the equator, or in the far north in the Arctic, or in the far south in Antarctica. I mean, one of the things that has been quite obvious over the last few years is that our general weather patterns have been less predictable than what they've been in the past. Last year we had a very, very dry summer. This year we've had a very wet summer. Both summers we've been subject to storms, which have been much more severe than we've ever had before. No one had ever heard of tornadoes coming through the Ottawa Valley, and we've had one that's touched down in Combermere and others just up on Aluman Island just within the last few weeks.
With less predictable and harsher weather, ecotourism operations such as Esprit have been compelled to adapt accordingly.
As it turns out, the effects of climate change, what that does to operations like ours is it adds a little bit more uncertainty or a little bit less predictability about in the way that we're going to operate. So for example, last summer we had low water from start to finish, so we had to operate in a certain manner. This year we had way more water than we would normally have. So even just the way that our guides have to adapt, and the training that we provide for our guides at those different water levels has some effect on us. Being a group which is readily adaptable, we make those different changes, but every time that you make a change to your operation, well, then you've got a little bit more uncertainty. Maybe there's some more cost, which ends up being involved in that. So you have to be able to make those type of adjustments. The more regular we can operate, the more efficiently we can operate, the more profitably we can operate. But as we're thrown with a bunch of these different curves and related to climate change, well, that certainly makes it more challenging for us.
While many industries involve resource extraction from their surrounding environment, ecotourism strives to ensure that future generations will have the opportunity to enjoy the area just as we do today.
I think ecotourism is a very important and vital industry within the Ottawa Valley. One of the benefits of ecotourism is it's something that works in conjunction with the local environment, as opposed to other sort of, call it classic type of tourism, which have a lot of development associated with it. And with that larger development, often that's trying to work around the environment to be able to, let's say, build large-scale resorts or other attractions on that don't necessarily include the environment as a partner or an ally in the actual product. So we think that the balance again of development, but keeping the environment as intact or as an integral part of the actual tourism product ends up being best for one, the operator, and two, for the local surroundings. So, for example, in the more rural areas of the Ottawa Valley on either side of the river, without having a huge amount of infrastructure, let's say just in accommodation, for example, then that then it naturally leads having ecotourism style trips where camping is the type of accommodation, means that the environment is part of the product. And that's one of the things that we can really make the most of within this region, because we already have incredible wide open spaces with very little infrastructure. So instead of trying to always think of build, instead what we need to do is think of the environment as a partner in our projects and as part of our actual product, as opposed to something that we have to circumvent or work our way around.
Climate change will continue to be a pressing problem that the Earth will have to face. It will be up to us to make the changes necessary to minimize its effects. Through the implementation of sustainable practices today, we can create a greener world tomorrow.
Watershed, it can be said, our home place. The clouds, the hills, our roof, our halls, and simple truth of watershed, here all our